Welcome to Jewish Cinémathèque, where we meet some of the important faces involved with films that tackle aspects of the Jewish experience. Today I'm joined by actor-producer Amir Kovacs, whose animated feature-length film Book of Joshua, Walls of Jericho can now be watched on major video-on-demand streaming platforms. Amir, with co-writer and director Tony Goss, takes us on the fascinating journey of the children of Israel from their liberation from slavery in Egypt and 40-year journey through the desert as they make their way to the land of Canaan. Led first by Moses, then by Joshua, they are forced to confront numerous battles and barriers along the way. When they finally cross the Jordan River, the Canaanite walled city of Jericho stands before them, imperiling their entry into the Promised Land. How was Joshua to bring the fortified walls tumbling down?
Your sons are about to walk into the land of great evil and unbelievable sin.
Say his name!
The sun will rise and shine light on a world where the Israelites are no more. Witness me, the mighty Og. Does your dung-filled mind think I will fall like Sion? You, like he, will not enter the land.
Joshua has strength, courage, faith. It is he who will lead you into the land promised to us.
The men you seek are with the harlot.
Will you show kindness to me and my family?
Our lives for your lives. We will attack. These walls will fall.
Book of Joshua, Walls of Jericho has won numerous awards, including Best Animated Feature at the Hollywood Reel Independent Film Festival. Amir, welcome to Jewish Cinémathèque.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So what a wonderful film. It's an animated film that begins in the desert.
Yes.
The children of Israel are there complaining as usual.
So we do.
That's what we do.
So we do.
And then making their way across the desert. And you bring us actually into the Promised Land,
Right.
And to the Battle of Jericho. And
Right.
it was eye-opening. I mean, I studied the Book of Joshua as a child, and just the animation. Where did you find your animators to be able to produce such an incredible film?
It completely happened by mistake. I originally wanted to do a graphic novel, and I was not happy with the first attempt of the graphic novel. So I called my father-in-law, out of all people. And he said, you know, I have a friend who did something with some studio out of India. Maybe he can connect you with that studio. So I called the studio and I said, I want to make a graphic novel. And they said, send us the screenplay. I sent the screenplay. They said, it's not a book, it's a movie. Let's make a movie. So that's how that happened.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And you decided to bring in Tony to co-write this with you?
Yes, I've known Tony for a good amount of years. And I like Tony for many, many reasons, one of which he goes to Disneyland alone. And I said, that's the guy who's going to direct my animation.
Love it.
And he knew nothing about the Bible.
No kidding.
Tony knows nothing about the Bible. And I thought that would be perfect because I need a guy who's going to be very objective and is going to look at it from a film perspective, an art form, as opposed to somebody who's going to say, let me take that story and make it more my agenda. I didn't want that.
So here you have a story. It's very clearly delineated in the Bible, and yet you're challenged by what parts of that story to tell and when to include, I guess, the midrash or the the rabbinic interpretation and the Agadah, the rabbinic legends, and where do you pull that all together and incorporate it? And then you have to figure out your audience is going to look at this and say, well, that's not what the Bible says, or that is what the Bible says. How did you deal with that?
I read the story over and over again. When I was a kid, that was my favorite story as well. I like epic films, I like biblical stories, I like war movies. It just made sense. So I read the story over and over again. I read the translations over and over again. What about the spies? How many were there? 12, then there were 2. What was the year span? And I gathered a story that I felt was an accurate translation for the most part. Now, the dialogue between characters, we don't know. I looked at every scene, I looked at everything that happened, and I said, you know what, maybe that's what they said to each other. And then I kind of developed the characters with Tony, and we let the characters decide what to say and when, based on what we thought we knew about them. But it took a lot of research.
And you had the built-in bad guys.
Yes, of course, you got to have a bad guy, or a few of them.
You certainly found a few of them.
I found a few of them.
How did you make a decision in terms of where to begin that story? You could have gone back into Egypt. You could have,
Right.
had the crossing of the Red Sea. You do have a crossing of the Jordan, which is great.
Right.
But how did you decide to begin at that moment?
So we had films before, the 10 Commandments, Prince of Egypt. We all know the story of the slavery in Egypt. We all know the parting of the seas. We all know that they went through the desert. I could have told the story of more of the same, if you will. But I decided to tell the story of Joshua, which is the day he received the baton from Moses, and Moses said, I'm not allowed in the promised land. You are. You're going to be the one to take them in. So I even took it a little bit too backwards, if you will.
Really? You say too backwards?
I wanted to start at the Battle of Jericho. That's not to end it with that. I wanted the story to be just about Joshua. But then I spoke to Tony, and we both agreed we kind of have to tell the story of how Joshua became Joshua, who is the first Israelite general we've ever had, if you take Moses out of the equation, right? So that's why I started. They crossed the Red Sea. I'm kind of showing that a little bit. I'm kind of bringing you up to speed. And 40 years in the desert, and now Joshua takes the baton, and we're going after Jericho.
And then that whole story when of course Moses leaves us, and you have Joshua taking the mantle, and the people of Israel sort of saying, the children of Israel, hey, we don't trust you.
Right.
Yeah, and you did that beautifully. How did you deal with that transition? I mean, here you had this amazing leader, probably the greatest leader the Jewish people have ever had.
Right.
And you transition to a guy who's not a prophet. He's
Right.
a general. He's got charisma. But
Right.
how do you show that on film, especially in animation?
It was very tough because I had to show that type of human aspect that, number one, he's well aware of the responsibility and he's questioning his abilities to execute the responsibilities.
Like Moses.
Like Moses did. We always question, we're Jews, that's just what we do, right? And Joshua is no different. It was a very thought of scene, specifically that scene that you're referring to,
Yeah.
where Moses tells Joshua, you will take them in, and Joshua says, what are you talking about? I'm not qualified, who am I? And that's why they questioned that as well, until one of them said, I believe it was Eliezer, who said, do you trust Moses? Well, he trusts him, so we should trust him as well. It was one of those, do we actually follow the leader now, the new leader? It was a very, so that's a perfect example of, do we really know the dialogue that happened? We don't. We do know that Joshua did question himself, and Moses did not question Joshua. Moses did exactly what God told him to do. But we do know that others would question, because even today we question all the time. So that's how we develop dialogues as well.
Here you have the story. Miriam is already gone,
Right.
for all intents and purposes. There are no women. But you introduce Rachav, Rahab.
Rahab.
And she's a fascinating character, and I think you sort of develop her. I don't know whether it's the legends about Rahab, but some scholars just see her as a woman who was a prostitute.
Right.
But you make her into a really three-dimensional person who has a lot going for her, and is a big advocate for the Jewish people. It's wonderful. Tell us about how you developed her and what her role is in the film. She's really the major woman in the film.
She's my favorite character, played by Mary Jamieson, who's a wonderful actress.
When you say played by, explain to the audience what that means.
She's Mary Jamieson is the voiceover of Rahab. She brought this character to life. And I needed somebody with that kind of voice, with that kind of accent, with that kind of determination to deliver those lines. And she just knocked it out of the park.
And tell us about the actor. Who is she? Yes.
Mary is a good friend. He's a professional actor. We worked before in a couple of films. Tony knows her very, very well. And he picked her to audition first. And I listened to her voice and I said, that's it.
See, people don't understand that there's an audition process. You listen to the voice. You have to make a decision. Yeah.
We had over 1,000 submissions. And at some point, I had to just put a piece of paper on the faces and close my eyes and just listen to the voice. Is this the right voice for this character? Is this what I'm hearing when I wrote the screenplay? And that's how we casted people. But Rahab is a phenomenal, strong woman character. They say she was a prostitute. When I was a kid, I did not know what that meant.
I don't think they taught us about prostitutes
they
when we were
didn't.
kids.
I asked my mother, I said, what does it mean? The word zonah, what does it mean? And I'll never forget that. My mom said, it's a woman that sells wine. I'm like, then I know many of them right now. So that's what I thought, right? And of course, I got older. What does it really mean? I asked a rabbi one time, what does it mean in the Bible? And then he gave me some explanation.
She was an innkeeper, right?
Yeah, that's what I met her, an innkeeper. She's an exotic dancer, an innkeeper, but very sophisticated woman. That in today's world, she could easily be a president. She can be a very strong politician. It's a woman that is so utterly intelligent, and that's what I wanted her to look like. She needed to survive those days, and what do you do when you're an attractive woman? You do what you do. I didn't show any of that, of course, because we really don't know for sure. So she has an inn with her family. She's a dancer at the Royal Hall of Heshbon and the Jericho, and that's how she survived. But she was intelligent enough to understand what the Israelites were all about, as opposed to the people from Jericho or the Amorites or the Canaanites or any of the other nations. And that's why. And she also helped the spies, which is written in the book of Joshua.
Yeah.
And that's why I made her such an integral part of that story.
Now, without giving away a spoiler, because
Right.
it's all written in the Bible anyway.
Exactly.
In Jewish lore, she's often referred to as an ancestor for kings, for some of the Judean kings.
Right.
In Christian lore, there's a Jesus connection.
Correct.
And so, how did you play with that? Here, at the very end, when she is saved and brought to be part of the Jewish people, also an interesting thing. She's not Jewish. She's a Canaanite. Everyone else in Jericho has been slaughtered if they're bad guys. And she's accepted.
Right.
What a nice thing to see. And like someone else we know in the Bible, like Ruth.
Ruth?
The Moabite. She is a Canaanite, a bad, but look what happens to her. How did you weave that in, and keeping in mind that you are showing a movie for not just Jewish audiences, but Christian audiences, and that this woman has this important place in our liturgy, in our history?
She's a very important character, in my opinion, in the Bible. The book of Joshua is being followed by Jewish Christians as well as Muslims, to be honest. There's a big question mark. Aksa, the little girl, tells Rahab that we're going to have a much greater leader, greater than Moses. She says that, right? Who is that person? We don't know. I don't know the answer. Let somebody else figure this out, right? I'm giving a lot of hints. I was trying to keep this movie as natural and as neutral as I could possibly make it. So to me, how do I integrate, how do I bring her to life in a way that is responsible? Less is more. This is who she is, this is her personality. Now you make your decisions. Who is she to you? We accept all of them. As Jews, as Israelites, we accept everyone, absolutely everyone. And we accepted her. She helped us. So.
Terrific.
Yeah.
And no one's upset. Everyone's connected.
Yeah.
That's great. You began your career after having previous careers.
Yeah.
So you began, I believe, as an architect?
No.
You studied architecture?
I studied architecture in high school, which was part of the high school diploma.
I wanted to go to that high school. Wow.
I know.
Which high school was this?
It's called Bosmat in Israel, in Haifa. I grew up in Israel.
Okay.
I ended up going to that school. I didn't do well in my previous school, so I ended up going to that school.
Stupid people.
No clue. So yes, I studied architecture, which I really enjoyed, but it was not my calling. And then at 18, I went to the military like everybody else.
So you were in the IDF?
Yeah.
And then decided?
Then I needed a break. And true story, I went to my father, who's a surgeon, and I said, Dad, my dad said, goes, what are you going to do now? And true story, I said, Dad, I'm going to India to do drugs. And he said, no. And cut. And I'm on a Delta flight to Florida, where my sister lived, to stay with her and watch the kids. And that's what I did. And I went to college, and then I went to grad school, medical school. And here's a new career until I decided maybe that's not what I need to be or do in life. And Hollywood it is. While having another career in medicine right now, but more in medical device.
Oh, so you still practice?
I don't practice. I work for a medical device company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that something has to pay the bills. My wife does practice though.
Mm-hmm. So device, animation,
Yep.
creation.
Yep.
Wonderful. And as an Israeli, connecting your history, your background with the story of Joshua, the conquest. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we see in the Bible, and some rabbis have problems with it and some no problems. I mean, it's a conquest of a land.
Right.
And take no prisoners, with exceptions.
Sure.
I mean, look what happened with Amalek. Well, they were the bad guys, and they remained the bad guys. But, battle after battle, this incredible Moses and Joshua, I mean, they're just defeating all the bad guys.
Right.
But the purpose is one purpose, and that is to seize this land. Mm-hmm. Is there a contemporary connection with that story in any way that you see? Or is it something that was the Bible, period?
Of course there's a connection. I mean, who is really indigenous to any land? We really don't know. All we know is when they started writing. That's how we keep track of history. What happened way before that? We have absolutely no idea. If you're referring to current events, which I'm assuming that's what you're referring to, mm-hmm. we don't know the answer. So we can debate, and then there's a guy who's going to show up and say, well, hold on a second. Maybe Islam did not start before Judaism, but we are the ancestors of the Canaanites. Okay. We can do this all day long, the back and forth. I think it's completely relevant. This movie is not about showing the world who was there first. This movie is about showing the world a beautiful a story of the Bible in an animated form. That's what it is. What's the connection between this to what's happening today? I think it's huge connection. I mean, it's the timing is you can't make this up. When I wrote the screenplay many years ago, when I started production 3 years ago, I never expected October 7th to happen. It happened. And now the movie is coming out. That becomes very relevant to show let us show you what you're not reading yet, or what you're failing to read, or what you refuse to read. So I think it is relevant. It's showing the story. And again, for you to make a decision, for the audience to make a decision if they like it or not, and if it is relevant to them. For some, it's not going to be relevant. They're going to say, well, those are not real Israelites. Some will say, here we go, here's the proof that we were there first. You know, I've seen crazy debates from both sides.
So you feel that this is a good thing, that it opens up just people talking to each other?
Of course, a conversation. You know, any press is good press, good or bad. It opens up, as long as it's a civilized conversation that we can talk about things, and whether we resolve them or not, or have resolution, it is what it is, but we can have a conversation about it. And we can say, well, you know, look what happened. Is this really true? Do we believe the movie? Is it true to the actual story? I'm sure I'll get much criticism, both good and bad.
That's what happens when you're a filmmaker.
Well, I'm here. I'll take it. I'm ready.
So clearly this can be used in an educational setting. Have you
Yes.
thought about creating study guides, educator guides, or is that long past?
I had a Jewish school approach me in Los Angeles, where I live, and asked me to show the movie because they studied the book of Joshua, and I did, and they were raving about it. They said it's exactly what the kids needed to learn the book of Joshua. I had adults. One of my colleagues who is Jewish, but he was not quite raised Jewish, he came out of the premiere and he goes, I think I'm going to read the book of Joshua now. He said, you taught me something. So I was very happy to see that I succeeded. Tony and I succeeded in executing the movie as close as we can to the actual book of Joshua. So people can say, oh wow, we just learned something in an animation form. So we don't have to read now. So we're good. But some people want to read it now.
And here's a clip from the book of Joshua, Walls of Jericho.
My king, these two men wish an audience with you.
And who are these men?
They're from the Israelite camp on the far bank of the Arnon River.
Ah, the Egyptian slaves. Do you have tributes to offer the mighty king of Heshbon?
We are a nomadic people and do not possess riches.
We offer one very valuable gift. Peace. Peace for the king of Heshbon, and peace for his people. For this peace, we seek only passage through your land. We shall travel only on the main road.
Take us, if you could, a lot of the audience doesn't quite understand animation. Animation, cartoons, that's what I watched when I was a kid. It's, you know, take us through the process of creating an animated film. What happens?
So you write the screenplay. Challenge number one, this screenplay was written for live action, not for animation. It was supposed to be a live action film. Cost a little bit too much money.
You know, I can only imagine, even with CG, you know, even with the technology today.
It's many tens of millions of dollars. But we took that screenplay and said, we're going to animate that. So now we find the studio and we talk to them a little bit. And then we break down scene by scene. So let's talk about scene number one. We take a scene. Tony, the director, is going to hand draw the angle of the camera. And he's going to take, for example, camera over here looking at you, camera over your shoulder looking at me, camera over there looking at both of us. Maybe there's a zoom in, zoom out, pan right, pan left. So one scene, several angles. We have to draw them. It looks like a 3-year-old drew them. We send that to the studio. They create the animatics. The animatics is their computer drawing of those scenes with clothing. We say, that looks good. Now let's put the wardrobe on. Now every scene might be different. Maybe now you're sweating. Maybe I tore your jacket. Everything has to be different. Once we approve all that, Tony gets that, then he sends it to me. I have the final say. I like it. Now we go to the animation. Now we have to watch the movements of everything. Does that make sense? Now we stop here and we look at the background. Like, you know, we have background actors, extras.
Extras.
Do we see the same people? Because we have to, again, everything has to be animated over and over again. Do we see the same people? Do they have the same movement? That eagle that flown by, is he flying again? Because now the camera is over here, so I need to see that eagle over there now.
So you're worried about continuity at this point?
Everything. Everything.
The color of the dress, the color of the this, whatever.
Everything.
Wow.
There's a scene where Rahab leaves the Amorite king, and she's getting to the Israelite camp. I'm trying not to reveal too much. When she does that...
Well, people can check the script.
Right. I'm assuming her clothes look a little bit different now because she just dragged something with her on a donkey.
Right.
Right? So we have to watch for everything. From the makeup, we have to create everything. And then we go to the actors, and they have to do the voices, and we have to match the voices with the movement of the lips and the facial expressions. You know, when you're yelling, I need to see that on the character. So now we have to re-illustrate that. And then there's the music that comes in. So there's a lot. Everything has to be created, the sound, the footsteps on the sand, on the rocks, the wind. Everything has to be created.
So you have basically an hour and a half, a little bit more, an hour and a half of film. How long, how many months did that take you to create?
3 years. 3 years. From the day we started until the day we finished, it was exactly 3 years of a lot of work.
And you're sitting there looking at every single scene multiple times.
Multiple times. Multiple times. I think I got a call from my director at some point. He says, if I watch this movie one more time, I'm just going to lose it. The poor guy watched it, I think, thousands of times. I watched it less, but I still watched it many, many times. But then you're very proud.
Yes.
You finish something, and you're hoping the audience is gonna like it as well and appreciate the artwork, you know, and the effort, because a lot of people put a lot of work. We had over 200 people involved in this.
This was not your first film. You've made many short films, many feature films. You've produced, and you've even acted in some films.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your acting career and how that plays into your producing career and sitting in different chairs and what that means.
I have a lot of funny stories about that. When I started, I had no clue what that meant, to be an actor, to be a writer, to be a producer. I had no idea. No idea. So I decided to be an extra in movies, background actor. And one time I'm sitting there, one of the movies, Zombieland. I'm an extra. I'm a featured extra. That means they're going to actually see me. And this guy sits on my chair. I'm a featured extra. You don't sit on my chair. And I came to him and I said, excuse me, I'm sitting here. Are you one of the extras? And he goes, not really. That was Malcolm McDowell.
And in case people don't know that, Clockwork Orange and so on and so on and so on.
Academy Award winner, Malcolm McDowell, yes. Right. It started with me being an extra. And here's a guy with his medical doctorate degree doing extra work at whatever, $12 an hour. And one of the PAs, production assistant, came to me and he says, you need to stand over there, and if you don't like it, just don't be on set. Or maybe go get education and get a real job. Okay, I'll go get education, I guess. It was a very humbling experience to see the amount of work. I remember one time I told my friends, when you go on a movie set, it's a bunch of ants working, I mean, constantly. It was very impressive. It's a very humbling experience. And then little by little, I started auditioning more and getting small roles here, small roles there, but I realized that it's a very, very difficult. I'm married at the time to my ex-wife with a child. It's not easy just to leave the good career and start your career in the film industry. So I started writing as well. I did well as a writer. I won some awards. And then I got a phone call from Jay Leno, who said, you have to go make this movie, this communist escape story of your grandparents. And I said, oh, well, then I guess I'll go make a movie now. And Jay goes, how can I help you? And I said, I don't know, I need Spielberg, I need Tom Hanks, I need money, I need to know how to make a movie. I have no clue. So we almost went to production. Unfortunately, the producer passed away. That canned the production, took the winds out of my sails.
I can only imagine.
It was just horrible. Horrible for his family, horrible for him, obviously. But then the production, it is what it is, right? And then I decided to attach myself to other productions. I was a stunt double, and I was a photo double, and I was an extra, and I was a real actor with lines and with big other actors, which was very fantastic, but never really made it to that level. I was always attached as an associate producer, as a producer, or Amir, can you help us go get the money and you'll get executive producer credit? I'm like, oh, great, because that's what I want. And then I decided to go back to medicine in medical device form. I did well, or got remarried to my beautiful wife, who's actually surgeon, and a practicing one, unlike me.
See, that's so your father's happy.
Now my dad is very, very happy because I brought that with, she's the favorite now. I'm not even, I'm the one.
Right.
Then she came to me and said, why don't you continue with what you love? Continue to write. I don't think she ever fathomed of me actually making a movie again. And when I said, we're actually making a movie, and she said, I never agreed to that. I told you to go write. And I said, well, we're making a movie. So yeah.
Beautiful.
It's been a journey.
And hopefully there'll be many, many more productions ahead of you, with some cameo appearances, I hope.
I hope so. I hope so.
Joshua did look a little bit like you, if I'm not mistaken.
He looked a lot like me. And as a matter of fact, Rahab looks like my daughter, who's a lone soldier in Israel right now. Wow. And I went to my daughter and I said, Neely, she's a very beautiful girl.
Of course, she's your daughter.
No, you'll see. This is a next level beautiful. And I said, Neely, I modeled Rahab after you because I love you so much. And she said, wasn't she a prostitute? She can't win, I guess.
Great way to conclude our chat. Really a delight. Thank you. The film is The Book of Joshua, Walls of Jericho. You must see it. It is on video on demand on a whole variety of streaming services. And make sure to take out your Tanakh in the course of it and follow what's going on. Wonderful to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.